I'm pretty old now, but I still appreciate the invite nonetheless. But I really just wanted to come out here a little bit this morning and share a little bit about my journey, not only playing sports, because you can read about me playing sports in the newspaper, but you won't hear about my journey in life from just growing up and my relationship with God. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that with you guys this morning, and just touch base about what I believe is important growing up. And so just like most of you guys, I was born here in Oconee County, local kid. I was the youngest of two. Both of my parents were pretty young when I was first born, so they were pretty much still living life somewhat, They were kind of involved in the street life, and before I was 3 years old, as far back as I can remember, both of my parents were addicted to hard drugs, okay? And it made life at home miserable at times, from the fussing, fighting, to just the drug use, but the one thing I remember was that my mom was strong in her faith, and she always pushed me and my brother to learn more, read the Bible, stay in church, stay focused on things outside of what was going on in my home. And I also realized at a young age that God started putting important people in my life. And I know you all realize, if you don't have the best home situation, God places important people in your life. And you may not even notice it now. But 10, 15 years down the line, you sit back and you think like, that was a pivotal point in my life where God gave me somebody. So when I was young, those people for me were my grandmother and my auntie Carolyn. Now they were strong, godly women. So no matter what I had going on at home, these two women always were my foundation to stand on. My auntie Carolyn and my grandmother made sure I was in church, and they made sure I was involved in everything in the church. I know when you were young, it was like, God, I want to go to Bible study. God, I don't want. But hey, that was me. My auntie, I was in the choir, and I couldn't even sing it. But they made me be involved. I hated it at the time, but it paid pivotal to me later in life. But like I said, my auntie and my grandmother were very important and made me stay in the church. So even though life at home wasn't going well, I started developing a relationship with God, and the church was really my safe haven from being at home around all the stress I had. And when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I was the youngest of two, and my brother started playing sports. So that was my outlet. I wanted to do everything my brother did, so I just started playing sports too. It wasn't that I was that interested, but it was something he did, so I wanted to do it. That was another point when I realized that God was moving in both of our lives, because I realized, and a lot of people realized around us, that we had a gift that was God-given, that we needed to take advantage of. So I started playing sports heavy. Like I played everything: baseball, football, basketball, anything I could get involved in that would keep me away from the house and would keep my mind on something positive. And other people took notice. Like I said, other people that are important started coming into your life. And I had coaches and family members and friends, and just guys I played with, that would look out for me. They would give me things, and they would make sure that I was always taken care of, and try to let me spend the night, kind of get away from my home situation. So I really just had that outlet, and sports was the best thing going for me. So when I was about maybe going into the 5th grade, my mom was still struggling heavy with drugs, and my dad had split by this point. So my family convinced me and my mom, my brother, to move to North Carolina, where they thought that we would be able to escape some of my mother's problems here and kind of give her a new start. So we moved to North Carolina from right here in safe Oconee to a place where it was nothing but poverty. I moved from Oconee to a poor, underprivileged area where there was nothing but more drugs and violence than I had ever seen before. So now not only did we not move my mom from a safe haven, we moved her to a place where there was even more drugs and chaos for her to get involved in. So now I was going into the 6th grade. My mom was again fully addicted on drugs, and And now I was in a place where I had nobody, no family, no friends, nobody to really look out for me. So just like most teenage kids or young kids, you start following the cool crowd. And I just wanted to do what the coolest kids did. So I was far removed from that church home that my auntie had raised me in. I was in the 6th grade and I was hanging out on the streets with guys that were 20 years old, and I was smoking, doing drugs. I was 14 years old. I had been robbed at least 4 or 5 times at gunpoint by the time I was 15 years old, because I was involved in something that was so far away from what I had been raised in. And but when I say God is amazing, He moved again. My mom met a guy, I would say probably around my 7th, 8th grade year. He wasn't like a stand-up guy, A1 guy, but he was the first thing that I had that was even similar to a father figure at this point. And he loved me, and he loved my brother. It was the first time we had that. So, you know, he kind of got me back on a straight and narrow path, and got me back in church somewhat. And I started back playing sports, because for maybe 2 or 3 years, I didn't do anything but run the streets and hang out. And everything was going good, life was still going good, but this guy, my mom, man, he also had a drug habit. So within 2 years, that relationship started deteriorating. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was about to start the 9th grade, and him and my mom had a huge fight. And I figured it was like most fights, you know, we would leave and we would come back and everything would work itself out. But this time it didn't happen like that. We left, we came back to get our stuff. He had committed suicide in the house. Devastating. The only father figure that I ever had was gone, and now my mom was on drugs and she was devastated. So not only could she not take care of herself, there was no way she could raise 2 boys. And we were teenagers, and I was fully involved in living my life at this point. But when I say God is amazing, what seemed like such a terrible situation was one of the biggest blessings I ever had in my life. Because that summer, with my mom being unable to take care of me, I came back to Oconee County. And I was visiting here with my grandmother, and I just begged, like, please, just let me stay. Don't make me go back. Because I didn't want to go back. Even though I was having fun, just living like a grown-up, and I was 15, I knew it wasn't the life that I wanted to live. So my grandmother called my mom, and, you know, they made some calls, and they convinced her to let me stay. And I moved back in with my auntie, who had that strong foundation. So no matter how bad it was just 6 months ago, I knew when I moved back in, she didn't play the radio. So once again, she put me back in the church, and she had me doing everything I was doing before I left here. But I had lost the passion to play sports. Like, at this point, I was like, I'm just going to run the streets. She was like, in this house, you're either going to go to church, you're going to work, you're going to go to school, and if you're not going to work, you're going to play sports. And I was like, well, I don't want to work. Like, who wants to get a job? So I was like, I'll play sports again, right? And I met a guy that changed my life. I went to one workout that summer, and I met Jeff Heron. He was the high school coach here in Oconee. And I worked out for him one time. That's all it was. And I went home, and I was telling my auntie, like, I don't think this football thing is for me. I'm just going to, you know, I play basketball. Like, I'm not going to play football. Coach Heron refused to hear that. He came to my house, packed my bags, and made me go play football. That decision changed my whole life. That wasn't my decision. So I'm a strong believer that God moved him to do that for me, because that changed my whole life. So now I went from living with no clue or understanding what I was going to do in life to having this guy that believed in me more than anybody. So within a year, I went from nothing to everybody knew my name in Oconee. I mean, I had started playing, I was doing good, and God moved again. He moved my mom back to Georgia here. My mom moved back. She saw I was doing so good. We got a place together, and she vowed to change her life. She wanted to change. She wanted to see me do right. And she had been, you know, her whole life, she was the best thing I had. She fought hard for me. But she wanted to be in a good place for me. So my mom got clean, and my mom's been clean for over 30 years. And, you know, it's amazing some of the things I've seen God do just throughout my life. But like I said, I started playing football, and I was good. You know, I was really good. So once again, God blessed me with something I never dreamed of. I got a full scholarship to go play football at the University of Georgia. Coming from where I was coming from, either all my guys were dead or in jail. We never dreamed about going to college. We never talked about it. Like, I never had a conversation, really honestly, with my friends about anything other than what we were doing in the streets. We never dreamed this big, ever. So here I was, living the dream, right? So just like most ignorant kids, what do? You turn your back and forget what got you there. So then I get to college, and now I'm thinking like, man, I'm self-made, right? And I forget that God had blessed me with all these things up until this point to get me to this point. And I went to college, and just like most of my guys there, we were just having fun, you know, living the nightlife, once again, partying, hanging out. And I was so far removed from what had really got me there. And once again, at the end of my career, God moved again. I had never had an injury in my whole life. And on senior day, my senior year, I broke my ankle. Never had an injury ever. And God grounded me. And I was sitting there, I was so frustrated, I was hating. But sitting in my room, it gave me an opportunity to just talk to God, and just really try to figure out what had happened. And I realized it was me. You know what I mean? You get so caught up in the everyday life. You want to improve. You want to be like your friends. You want to be in a popular crowd. You want to hang out with the cool kids. And you forget about your core, your foundation, about what I really came from. And God moved me again. And instead of being frustrated this time, I understood why. And I tried to get myself together. And I went back and I really started really reading the Word, trying to figure things out, and I was lucky enough that God blessed me with my beautiful wife, Juliet, and she had also came from a strong Christian family. So what she did was lift me back up from nothing. It was days that I sat and cried and just hated God because He had took what I thought was the one thing that I wanted more than anything at this point, football. He had took that away from me. I couldn't play. And Juliet was, she was amazing. Like, she honestly built me back up to really be the man that I am today. And still, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm still striving to get better. I'm not a holier than thou guy, but I do live off